4. The passionless ideal. For Greek thought, and especially in Neoplatonism, the superior realm is the world of ideas, forms, or spirit. This realm is also the world of causality and determinism. For Marx and Engels, the material world was the kingdom of necessity, the world of ideas, the kingdom of freedom. However, with the Great World Revolution, necessity and determinism were to be fully transformed to the world of ideas, a process already underway. The evolution of history is thus the transfer of necessity from matter to mind. This realm of mind is not personal. It is not the world of particulars, but universals, of the new state or communist social order in which alienation is overcome. For the Greeks also, the realm of ideas is not the realm of individuals nor of particulars, but the realm of universals. To put it crudely, man is not an idea because he is a personality. In man, there is some kind of union between idea, form of spirits, and matter, the realm of the particular and individual, which produces man. As long as man thinks of himself and his particular interests or goals, he is not moving in terms of the ideas or universals of being. Moreover, because he is moving in terms of himself, man is governed by passion, whereas ideas and universals are passionless. The word passion comes from the Greek pashko, to suffer. It is not to be confused with the Hebrew pashka, Passover, which means literally to pass over, to spare. In its wider meaning, passion meant every form or degree of feeling, although it was often restricted to mean those feelings which weaken the powers of reason and self-command. At this point, a very important fact of Greek psychology, still very much with us, appears, namely, a schizophrenic view of man. Man is seen as an unstable union of two contrary substances, mind and matter, and as a result, the two are in constant war one with the other. Belief in this psychological schizophrenia is so widespread that it has bred a deeply ingrained hypocrisy in Western man. Thus, a man will delude himself, believing that with his mind or spirit he is against committing fornication or adultery, but that by his lusts and bodily appetites he is being driven towards the act. His excuse for the commission of sin is that his lusts are too strong and his spirit too weak and weary to resist them. In reality, his sin has been the act of a unified man, whose mind has willed to sin, but has acted out a charade designed to impress his mind's native innocence on God and himself. Man sins because he chooses to sin, because every aspect of his being, mind and body, are alike fallen and given to sin. Indeed, long after the body is too sated or worn to continue in sin, the mind pores over sin like a miser over hoarded gold. Yet Plato, who divided passions into two classes, held that concupiscible passions spring from the body and perish with it, and are given to and are essentially lust, epithumia, whereas irascible passions are thumos, the mind roused to anger or wrath, and are connected by Plato with the rational and immortal part of our nature, stimulating us to the pursuit of good and the avoiding of excess and evil. Because in this world we are still body and soul, the mind must accomplish its stimulation of the unified man by means of irascible passions, thumos, but the stimulation, while an imperfection, is still to the pursuit of good. Aristotle also held to this distinction between appetites irascible and concupiscible. It was a natural development in terms of Greek thought. Stoicism followed the Neoplatonic depreciation of passion or feeling. Reason, the faculty of mind or spirit, had to be the mainspring of action in life. The act of virtue must come from the knowledge of reason, reason being naturally good. The more nearly a man became pure reason, the more he approximated ideal reason and good. The quote-unquote summum bonum, or highest good of man, is the regulation of passion and the total ordering of life by passionless reason. The law of nature is virtue, a rational or passionless good, quote-unquote nature, definitely did not mean the material world, but the world of ideas or forms. The irrational nature of man must be suppressed and subjugated by his rational and true nature. The world of reason or nature is a passionless, determined, impersonal world, and as a result, Stoicism was fatalistic. The world of necessity is the world of reason, whereas the world of freedom is the anarchistic world of personality, feeling, and imperfection. This concept entered deeply into the Western world, whether in medieval heretical sects, Renaissance thinkers, modern anarchism, or the New Left and the hippies of the 1960s and 1970s. The association of law with impersonal mechanical forces and of freedom with passionate and lawless impulses is Stoic and anti-Christian to the core. Such people have accepted the Stoic analysis, but have chosen the side of passion as against reason. The Christian must oppose this false and dialectical faith. The recurring hatred of women which has beset Western cultures is again a product of this Greek tradition. Women are seen as passionate creatures, readily given to emotions and therefore inferior and less capable of virtue. Acceptance of the Stoic faith has meant a contempt for women, a denial of reason, but a retention of this Stoic and Neoplatonic worldview has meant the worship of anarchistic passions, and, as a result, a romantic worship of women as the supposed incarnation of pure feeling. The true Stoic suppresses all passion or feeling and acts in accordance with reason or quote-unquote nature or quote-unquote law, and is therefore wise and happy in an intellectual way, of course. To act in accordance with reason is to act without reference to passion or feeling. The wise ruler, therefore, is an unfeeling and radically rational man. In the French Revolution, the Committee of Public Safety saw itself as reason in action against the enemies of reason, nature, law, and justice. Evil had to be destroyed, and this meant the reign of terror. Robespierre saw it as his task to institute the reign of reason by destroying unreason or crime. Quote, "The revolution is the transition from the regime of crime to the regime of justice." End quote. The modern intellectual, because he is himself a part of the same intellectual tradition, sees Robespierre as a hero. Thus, Pincinelli says of the death of the murderous Robespierre, quote, "Let us never forget, when he died, the conscience of the revolution perished with him." End quote. The fact that the terror ended soon after Robespierre's death means nothing to such men. Robespierre meant the rule of reason and therefore of law and conscience. Men could be killed casually to make way for the future, but all this was evidence of the priority of reason over passion. There was in operation a plan of systematic depopulation, the planned annihilation of 12 or 15 million of the French people as a part of the revolutionary dream of remaking France in terms of reason. But to the heirs of Plato and the would-be philosopher kings, this is reason and conscience in operation. For the same reason, the murderous regimes of the Soviet Union, Red China, Communist Cuba, and like states have a natural appeal for the heirs of Plato. Here is reason, idea in action, without reference to passion, personality, human feeling, or emotional considerations. The more depraved such a regime is, the more ideal it appears to the sons of Plato, because men are used without reference to their humanity. They are sacrificed nobly to the ideal future, the rational order planned for man. From Plato through Thomas More to the present, the man of reason finds his fondest hopes expressed in a totally unfeeling, impersonal, inhuman order. It is his dream of a rational paradise, man's garden of reason. The heirs of Plato are not wholly devoid of passion, of course. They eschew concupiscence, the reign of bodily passion, when they indulge in fornication and adultery, It is without real feeling, of course, and simply as a therapeutic exercise to calm the body's rage. Nothing makes them hate a woman more than for her to be appealingly lovable, for there must be no claims of passion or feeling on a man. Such a woman must be exercised by being possessed and then cast aside and despised. How dare she intrude on their inner being and exercise a claim over them? The good passion is the intellectual one. The intellect will gurgle with delight over a turn of phrase in an insipid poet. He will relish the latest development of revolutionary, and hence, by definition, rational rage against man. Since revolutions are the planned, quote-unquote, rational destruction of the past's, quote, irrationality, end quote, they are, by definition, quote-unquote, rational. The intellectual passion over ideas is thus by necessity over ideas that are inhuman and devoid of feeling. If this seems an overstatement, notice how a Princeton professor of philosophy read Hegel, quote, "It was the summer of 1942, after I had passed my prelims at Harvard and got married, that I first read the Phenomenology and the Encyclopedia. One might study Hegel with one's teeth clenched, but I read him in a honeymoon spirit," end quote. Kaufman adds that, quote, "My honeymoon with Hegel is long past," end quote, but consider the fact of his quote-unquote honeymoon with Hegel. In 1942, the armies of the Soviet Union and of Nazi Germany, among others, were marching brutally to the idea of Hegel. Kaufman could read Hegel, quote, "in a honeymoon spirit," end quote. For the sons of Plato, passion is exercised not for man, but for the idea of man. It is not the Negro or the Indian or the poor who concern the intellectual, the man of reason after Plato, but rather the idea of these people. He can thus be callously oblivious to their plight until his idea requires concern for them. Passion thus is directed towards ideas, not realities nor persons in themselves under God. The result is intellectual gush, emotional hypocrisy, because its concern is with the masks of men rather than their persons. Within the realm of the church, intellectual gush has as its counterpart pious gush, mind or spirit expressing itself as quote-unquote soul rather than quote-unquote reason. Roman Catholic literature is full of pious gush, libraries full of it, but as a Protestant I shall consider the Protestant versions instead. Consider, for example, the following. The heart of a prayer by a woman at a prayer meeting. To reproduce accurately the gush of that prayer is beyond me, but this was its beginning, the end coming long minutes later. Quote, "Lord, be merciful unto me, poor sinner that I am. I sometimes go a whole hour doing my work and never thinking about you. How can I, who have known such sweet joys in your presence, fall into such sin as to forget you for a whole hour? My heart breaks with the knowledge of my failure to love you as I should. Possess my soul with a never-ending passion for you, that I may every moment be near to the heart of Jesus and be filled with the sweet passions of your grace and love, etc., etc., ad nauseam." End quote. This woman was negligent of her ordinary responsibilities as a daughter, wife, and mother. Her refuge from responsibility was in pious gush and sanctimonious piety. The purpose of her prayers was to impress on others her closeness to God and to make them feel ashamed that they, unlike her, were not going about their work in religious ecstasy day after day. She was without either faith or works. She had replaced both with pious gush. To cite another example, in 1952 I attended, but not again, a conference held by a notable evangelist for ministers. The reaction of all the clergy, other than mine, was very favourable. The pious and blasphemous fool took as his quote-unquote text John 13:25, which refers to the seating at the Last Supper. St. John, quote, "lying on Jesus' breast," end quote, in the custom of the time at tables. The breast, he declared, is the organ of milk which nourishes babies. The greatness of John was that, as a babe, he lay in Jesus' bosom, drawing the sweet milk of the gospel. Let us too draw near and suck earnestly at the breast of Jesus, etc., etc., ad nauseam. The woman in question in the first illustration was unfeeling in her relationship to her family and friends. She was, quote, above, end quote, earthly things, including her ordinary duties. The evangelist, I found on a little inquiry, was a very, quote, spiritual, end quote, man, not concerned with creaturely comforts. He was better clothed than I and looked as well fed, but he no doubt never gave such matters a thought, being, quote unquote, spiritual. Pious gush militates against the essentials of Christian life, faith and obedience, and it substitutes for them a flight from reality and responsibility, a hypocritical spirituality which has indeed a genuine spirituality underneath it all, but it is the spirituality of Satan, a purely spiritual being,